And we'll get started in about 30 seconds here. I call this meeting to order. Please, everybody, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, Yavapai County Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee is conducting this meeting in accordance with the Arizona Open Meeting Laws pursuant to, I'm not even going to try, ARS 38-431.02 and an A in bull eggs and a 2 in bull eggs. Anyways, let's start with roll call, please.
District 1, Supervisor Oberg. District 3, Supervisor Michaels, since she is an excused absence. Member Jim Peterson.
Here.
Member Kevin Osterman.
Present.
Member Connie Cantelmi. Here. Member Mary Shaquin.
Here.
Member John Black.
Here.
Member Joseph Chevroletti. And you can unmute yourself.
Yep.
And we do have him on WebEx. Oh, there we
Yep,
go.
here.
Member Sandra Delaney. I do not see her. Member Vincent Gallegos. And I do not see him, but we do have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Do we have any disclosures of ex parte contacts?
Let me just acknowledge that every month at the Verde Valley Regional Economic Organization Board meeting, we have a sort of a line item in our strategic planning report that gives a quick update to the VB Rio board on where we are with the county planning.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That sounds like a really productive activity. Okay, first thing on the agenda, we need to get an approval of the minutes for the November 10th, 2021 CPAC meeting. Hopefully everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes. And if anyone would like to make a motion and a second, that would be wonderful.
I have some comments first.
Okay, well, let's get our motion and second first, and then we'll have discussion, John.
All right,
Are you
fine.
the second, John? I'm sorry, Mr.
What
Oberg
is the
is.
motion? Are we motioning
The motion
to
is
review the
approval of
minutes?
the minutes.
Oh,
And,
not
and I
approval.
have
I would vote for reviewing them, yes.
Well, we will, of course. That's called discussion. First, we get a motion and a second, and then we discuss. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
I'll
and
second.
Connie seconds it. Okay, now discussion. Go ahead, John.
Okay, thank you. There are several items in here that are not according to what I said in the meeting. I just want to get those corrected. Under, let's see, Section 2, vision statement discussion. It says that I generated a list of possible elements that could be included in Yavapai County's elements and will share it with the rest of the group. And it says 8 elements. I did not do that. What I did do was that I said I felt that it would be important to add some additional elements to the mandatory 8. And the one I suggested was an element on education. Supervisor Michaels suggested that we add one on economic development.
Okay, good.
So
When we
I'd
get
like
to
the
that item
minutes,
on the agenda, of course, we will address those additional items. I'm certain there won't be any difficulty at all correcting the minutes. I see a nodding of the head. Good, thanks for pointing that out. Anything else? Anyone else? Any other further
yes.
discussion? Okay, go ahead, John.
Yes, I have some others. This one doesn't necessarily have to do with the correction of the minutes. It has to do, Mr. Dye said that the survey results will be presented to the Board of Supervisors. but he didn't make any comment about presenting to us. So I'm not asking for a correction there, but I would like clarification on when we'll see that. Let's see. Under the, section 3, where we reviewed the energy element, this is where I submitted a list. I think this is where the confusion arose. I had 2 lists. I had one for the energy element and one for the environmental element. What I said in the meeting was that I had a concern that we had written 2 elements of the 8 mandatory elements, and we had not yet conducted any sessions with the public to ask them what they felt were the important concerns to be addressed. And I said, I don't want to be complaining without offering a potential solution. My suggestion was that we take questions from the surveys that the individual community vision statements had used and consider those as a county-wide list of questions. And I compiled a list of questions for the energy element taken out of the vision statements and suggested that they be presented to the committee for consideration for a future survey. I think that's the list that was confused in the earlier element. So in the earlier point. So I just want to correct it to say that I wanted to see further surveys done in order to get input from county residents, and that I submitted a list of survey questions taken from the vision statements that had been submitted by communities. So I did submit a list there, and I on item 4 under environmental element, I also submitted a list, again, questions taken from the community vision statements that I felt would be useful for a future survey. So I'd like that reflected in the minutes.
And it will be. Anything else?
Further down, just before other business, said Mr. Hawk commented on Mr. Black's 8 additional elements that he had given to the committee members. That's incorrect. I didn't propose 8 additional elements. And then it says below that, Mr. Hawk said he will distribute the email to the committee members with staff's recommendations highlighted for the committee members to see. The 2 lists that I did submit, as far as I know, were never submitted to the committee members. I assumed they were going to be agendized, in other words, distributed to the members for review, and that we would discuss them in this meeting. Apparently that didn't happen. So I would like a correction here to say, well, I guess neither one happened. I didn't submit 8 additional elements, and he didn't distribute them. So I'm not sure why, what we say to correct that.
Actually, the lists were distributed. The email was sent out, Mr. Chairman, I received a copy of it, of your things, John.
All right. Well, I guess I must have missed it. I would like to have it corrected so that it doesn't say 8 additional elements. Say that the suggested survey questions for use on a future county survey instead of 8 additional elements.
And I'm getting a nod, yes, that's going to be taken care of.
Okay, very good. Further down under other business, it says, Mr. Dye said the vision statements are a board direction and they will be appendices as reference documents. They will not be adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. That, I believe that's a correct quote. However, I don't see the comment from Supervisor Michaels, who said this is still an open question as to how the vision statements will be used, whether or not they'll be adopted. And she said that she would like to see them adopted. So I'd like some notation about her comment there, that that's still an open question.
Done.
Okay. Let's see. I do have some other comments, but not for correction. I'll mention those later at the appropriate time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And keep in mind, by the way, everybody, that at the end of the, well, almost at the end of the meeting, we're going to have a round table for committee members to discuss any topics that weren't included on the agenda. So if anything else comes to mind as the meeting progresses, that will be your opportunity. Okay. That all stated, are there any other corrections to the minutes, any other discussion? Very well, I'll ask the question. All in favor of voting to approve the minutes, raise your hand, please.
I would be in favor of approving the minutes with the corrections that I asked for.
As corrected, yeah, that's fine, as corrected, thank you.
I'll make the motion.
Oh, good, wonderful, thanks. Okay, good, the minutes have been approved. So moving right along, new business. Discussion of the upcoming tentative schedule of the CPAC committee meeting dates. And you'll note that in the first part of the email that Andrea sent out, one of the many wonderful emails that Andrea has sent out to us, are the dates for the future meetings. And as you can see, starting at today, December 9th, and moving on down. Everybody, look at that schedule. I don't know if you've had a chance to bounce it off of your calendars already. If there's any significant conflicts that are occurring on those dates or anything else that you're aware of, or if a number of you are not able to attend on those dates, then we may have to modify the schedule again. But otherwise, just are there any conflicts that anyone has noted at this time? Yes, Mary. Go ahead.
On January 13th, actually the 12th and 13th, the Arizona Economic Development Organization is doing a 2-day rural housing symposium for the entire state. And it's half day, and unfortunately on the 13th, it's all morning, and I am one of the presenters, so I will not be able to attend.
That makes sense. Well, hopefully we'll still be able to raise a quorum, and if we can't, then we'll look at that date and we'll see if there's another date in January that works for everybody. But thanks for the heads up, Mary, and if staff, if you could make a note of that so we can kind of keep track of who's there and who's not there. So anyways, those are your dates.
I'd like to make a comment about the dates. Thursdays have been a problem. I don't know whether, Jeremy, you've been informed of this, but today, this Thursday, we have the medium caucus meetings, and then we have the CSA board meeting, which we're supposed to attend. And so, I'm having to miss that right now because of the comprehensive plan meeting. So is there any chance that we can move to a different day of the week?
Yeah, Supervisor Oberg, we can take a look at that. The dates that we have are, we coordinate those with board meeting dates, planning and zoning, board of adjustments, things like that. Mm-hmm. At the beginning of the comprehensive plan committee last year, I believe Thursdays were the days that people had generally agreed on at that point. So we had started to schedule on Thursdays on the, whatever it is, the first or second Thursday of the month. I'll definitely take a look at the dates and see if rooms are available and things like that.
If you can move it to another Thursday where we're not conflicting with the CSA
I'll see what I can do.
Meetings, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on dates? Yes, Connie.
So it'll be fine for the people in Prescott to go by Zoom or WebEx, or what do you, Zoom?
Yeah, WebEx.
A WebEx? Okay.
I think we're going to be WebEx capable in the future, for at least for a good while.
Right, but here, you would be coming here, or would we just be doing it from our office or wherever?
It can be either way.
Either or.
Okay.
We're streaming it. We're holding both meetings or meetings in both Cottonwood and Prescott, and they can be you can WebEx in from your own location if needed to.
Okay, but you would have this open also?
Yep.
If we needed to?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. If we're in Cottonwood. Okay.
Oh, okay.
My apologies.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, I'm happy to do it from my office. I just want to make sure it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that update, Jeremy. Okay, let's just dive right into it. Updates on the energy and environmental elements. Please note that these are the elements that we already kind of hashed out. We have a draft. We have something to work with. Hopefully everybody has had an opportunity to look at these elements, and you'll notice that so there's been other things that provided with them, including acronyms used by the comprehensive plan, just in case anyone looks and goes, what is ARS again, or whatever. That'll be your little guide that you can hop to right off the bat. Did anyone, hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to look at these. We've looked at these a number of times at this point. Does anything jump out at anybody as far as the energy element goes now, as far as the wording that we hammered out? Yes, John. Go ahead, John. John, I think your mic is off.
My apologies.
No, no problem. Go ahead. Start again.
Okay. I realize that this draft is a work in progress, and we will be doing more on it. But my concern right now is that of the total, we have about 5 1/4 pages on this draft. 4 of those pages are history. Basically, it's just recounting things that have happened in the past as far as legislation and requirements and so forth. We only have about 1 1/4 page where we actually mention any recommendations or goals or whatever. So I'm concerned about the fact that, I mean, this is supposed to be a 10-year plan, and recounting history is not a plan. I don't see any problem with providing some background, but right now we really haven't presented much of a plan here. Just to comment. So I think it's going to require quite a bit more work in order to make it a useful plan.
Oh yeah, I think that's understood, hopefully by everybody. Right now, we're kind of, we put the bones together, and right now we're kind of adding flesh and skin. And it's going to be a long, slow process, but it gives us something to work with. That's our outline.
Yeah, I appreciate that, yes.
And once again, for all committee members, if you have any additions, any additional items that you want to make sure are addressed in the energy element 2.0, then please, please, please. This is an item that's already been agendized, discussed, and now it's your opportunity to provide any email, and we can discuss it back and forth. We won't be in any, as far as I know, we won't be in any violation of any open meeting laws to hammer out, to really refine the elements after we've had a chance to put them together and discuss them publicly. Does that make sense?
I have a comment regarding that process.
Please.
The evolving of this element, as well as all the other elements, is not something that can be done verbally in a meeting. It's going to require that we be able to submit suggested changes. For example, I'd like to rewrite this paragraph, or I'd like to add such and such a section or whatever. We don't have a procedure for doing that. I'd like to establish some procedure where members of the committee can submit drafts for changes they'd like to see and have that agendized so that we do it according to the open meeting law.
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to avoid open meeting laws, but once we've agendized it, we've discussed it, and we've thrown it out to the public, and we've openly discussed additions and corrections and so forth and so on, we're open to them, I believe, without any, staff may correct me, but I see Jeremy nodding in agreement. That's a good start. I'd like to move this along as quickly as possible, but as effectively and efficiently as possible as well. So once again, I think after we've kind of fleshed these areas out, these elements, we're going to receive a lot more public comment. It's been my experience typically that most of the public comment comes when you've got something that almost looks like a finished document, and then all of a sudden everybody wants to read it and make corrections, and I'm open to that. I think we all are. That's just part of the process. But that's the direction that we're moving in with this right now. Does that make sense to you, John?
No. In a meeting like this, we can say things like this word is misspelled, or this phrase is not clear, or
Right.
I'd like to insert this phrase. It doesn't provide a means for making meaningful changes on a document as far as, is this topic not addressed, and how would we like to address it, and so forth. It's just not a situation that allows you to do that kind of work. What I would like to do is create a procedure where, for example, me or anyone else on the committee could submit a document to say, okay, I would like to have this inserted in, more than just a sentence maybe, a topic, for example, and it would be agendized so the public would have an opportunity to read it prior to the meeting, and then we would all have a chance to review it prior to the meeting and then discuss that. Right now we don't have any procedure for being able to do that.
Okay.
Chairman?
Yes, please.
Can I just make a suggestion? And I think this was the intent all along, actually, is as you're reviewing those, for instance, when I'm writing, editing, or working with Kazi and Jeremy on stuff, We want those comments. So I would encourage you to, individuals, not to the entire committee, but to email if you have those comments or additions, or for instance, in the last meeting, we were talking about growth and we're talking about energy and environmental. Some of the comments were like, oh, you'll just make these other corrections, but I don't know what corrections you're talking about as well sometimes. So if you do have other things that we just run out of time here, I really would encourage committee members to email Jeremy and Kazi with those, and then they will discuss them and forward them, and so that we can implement the ones that we feel are appropriate and work in track changes mode for that distribution. For instance, like in energy environment right now, the items that are in yellow have been changed from the last meeting. So we could obviously, for instance, moving forward with energy and environmental, and in the future with growth, if we receive those comments prior to, those can be part of our modifications. And then, like you asked, then we can discuss those revisions at the next meeting. But do the open meeting law, like you said, we can't distribute them to everybody to look through and discuss, but we can just throw out the document, which we're going to be discussing again, which hopefully then would include your comments. So if you have those, for instance, if there's, like you mentioned, you felt that the energy element is very thin, if there's certain goals or policies that you feel are completely missed, or objectives you feel should be implemented into that, I know I've been doing a couple of these in other different jurisdictions. If there's something I'm not seeing, or I would like to know those. So any of those things I feel that should be included in email, and I would encourage you to. Otherwise, I can't give you what I don't know. You're missing. So I think you should be emailing Jeremy or Kazi those. But again, do not CC all or any of that stuff.
And Mr. Chairman.
Understood.
And
So what you're saying is that any drafts of anything that we would like to see inserted or any major changes, we should create a document and send that to Kazi for review by the staff and inclusion in the element. Is that correct?
Right, or Jeremy, either one.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Dr. Black, yeah, please email those to Kazi and I both. And what we will do, exactly what Jessica just said just now, is we'll make sure that that's included as part of the agendized, as part of the agenda moving forward for future discussion. So that'll be on the agenda for whatever document that you submit or whatever changes you recommend. That can be discussed in the committee.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay, are we good now? Okay, getting back into the energy element, once again, after reviewing the material that we already have, has anyone spotted any corrections or any additions that would be helpful? Connie?
Yeah, I just have a quick comment, kind of to address what Dr. Black is trying to get at. And, one of the things that I talked about earlier in some of the other meetings was how deep do we drill down into some of these things? Because, as I'm reminded, if we read right here in the introduction, and let's just take the energy element, it says right here, this is a comprehensive plan. It's not really, I don't think we can break this down and get into a ton of detail concerning, for example, let's say solar. But if if you want to include that in there, it's not up to us actually to get into the detail of that. We're basically saying that will we allow it in the event that somebody comes forward and says they want to have a solar field somewhere, like maybe the one behind the VA. So it's a comprehensive plan. It's a guide for people like me who develop. I'm a builder, I'm a developer, and I need a guide like this. It's great. But the detail part of it now passes on to the development department at a different stage. So it moves out of the comprehensive plan. One of the things I have not noticed in here are any violations or anything that we do not allow. Do we get into that? I mean, how deep do we get into it? Because I know that Dr. Black has a propensity to want to have a little more detail because some minds work that way. But in this particular plan, correct me if I'm wrong, do we need to get, again, drilled so deep into some of these issues? Aren't we just here to offer an overhauled comprehensive plan of what we will allow? Beyond that, it goes into a different department.
So yes, ma'am, that is correct, and Mr. Chair, that is correct. The comprehensive plan, of course, is that 30,000-foot level to give us that roadmap of where we need to go. The limitations, the restrictions, or the things that are violations are going to be subject to whatever the laws are, given what that industry is, whether it's environmental or energy. It's going to be subject to those laws, state, local, and federal. So those are going to be the restrictions. Apart from that, it's exactly as you said. It's our roadmap to kind of guide us where we need to be.
Right, so in that case, to Dr. Black's point, when we review some of the things that he's proposed, sometimes I feel like it's swaying off of the road that we need to go. Those points are valid, but that's when we kick it up a notch and we get into the development department on some of these things, including some of the things like I think Donna Michaels mentioned the wild, let me see, how did she put that? Basically, the corridors for the wild animals maybe as an additional item. And I would not be opposed to putting that in there, but in my mind, again, knowing how the development process works, it's a little bit of fluff because those are not protected. And we have a very difficult time protecting those because we have property rights. So, we have to be very careful how much detail and how much we add to this thing to complicate it, because there's so many more things behind the verbiage. It's nice to say that, and it sounds wonderful, but it doesn't mean anything in the long run because those things are just not protected at this point in some cases.
Correct, and there is that fine line that we have to find, and you, as the committee, need to find that fine line as well. And when we do start to steer too far into the weeds, the staff will at least be able to guide you back into that as well. So
yeah, because I'm in favor of having the comprehensive plan, obviously, but I also want to be very careful about mandating things because that's not we don't have the ability to do that.
Correct.
Okay.
And also just for clarification, when you guys send emails to Jeremy or Kazi, if there's things like you want to encourage, so we would be looking at things in terms of, is the comprehensive plan encouraging something you want, or is it discouraging? Is it prohibiting something you want? And so when we write the language or the goals or policies, we won't do the ordinance language. We'll pull it back. So we'll get, requests or comments from whatever chair and board members, but we'll modify it so it is not what you're worried about.
Well, are we prohibiting anything?
Right.
And do we get into that in this document?
We can discourage,
right? But
that's as far as you can go. I don't usually see, things being prohibited in comp plans. But if there's something that, some jurisdictions are really, they have too much of something, for instance, in land use or whatever, and so they can discourage it or just encourage it somewhere specific. And that's as far as it goes rather than prohibit.
But wouldn't that go back then to the vision statement? I mean, certainly anybody doing anything would like to go back to the community vision statement. Obviously, if you're in Kirkland, you want a rural, feeling to remain. That would be comprehensive in the vision statement. Mm-hmm. The rest of it is basically suggestions. So, to his point, adding a few things in there, but understanding where the line is of the things that we cannot add in there. Would we like to have that? Sure. That goes in the vision statement. Yes. But can we actually mandate those things at that point? I don't think we can.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you, Connie. Actually, that's almost a perfect segue for our next item on the agenda, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay.
But the next, after we finish discussing the energy element and the environmental element, we're going to be doing more work on the vision statement. Yes, John?
Just to clarify what I said earlier, I'm not really looking to get into the details. I understand the concern there. I'm talking more about at the policy level. To give an example, should the county encourage underground utility lines for new developments? Is that, we're not mandating it, we're not prohibiting anything, we're simply saying that we would encourage that going forward. That's a policy kind of approach, and that's kind of what I'm proposing.
Okay, that's great. I really appreciate that, and I understand it. Once again, as I understand it, our comp plan is going to be the 30,000-foot view, and we'll get down into the weeds and woods with the additional regulations and subordinate documents that are subordinate to our comp plan, if that works for everybody. And keep in mind, once again, that as we hammer these elements out, they're not cast in anything at this point. There's going to be a number of community meetings that are going to be held over almost the next year that we're going to be working on this plan. And we're going to be getting a lot of input through the surveys and, of course, through committee members. So this isn't a finished product. It's just something that we're working with, and we're just trying to make it as effective as possible and also as efficient as possible. So let's, if we could, I'd like to just jump back into what we already have prepared and talk about what we have, any refinements that you may have noticed, anything that you'd like to see included or excluded, and work from there. And once again, having full appreciation for the fact that there is a lot of historical background in this document, but I think it's important when you're flying at the 30,000 foot level, looking down. This kind of helps you to kind of cue into what you're looking at, I guess, as you're going along. Once again, without any fine details. Does that make sense? I see some nodding heads. Okay, well, anyways, that's going to be our mantra for this time, and then we'll go forward from there. So once again, looking at the energy element, is there anything that we've currently prepared in the energy element that you see room to update, correct, delete, include? Well, I think we may have wrapped up the energy element pretty quickly. There's nothing that jumps out at you. Okay, good. Let's move right along then. And once again, keeping in mind, everybody, if you spot anything after the meeting or before the next meeting or whatever, that's a good opportunity for you to email Kaz or Jeremy and let them know, and they'll disseminate the information in a good legal manner that complies with all rules and laws and so forth and so on. But let's go ahead and take a look at the environmental element then. Once again, is there anything in the environmental element that anybody spotted and said, hey, that's not quite right, or this ought to be included, or so forth and so on? Once again, there's a little bit of background information, a considerable amount of background information going into this element, but pretty important, I think, information.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Jim, please.
A couple quick things. Under Goal 1, it was suggested that we change after the word create, Objective A, create opportunities. I'm not sure what that means or what we're trying to imply there. Opportunities to upgrade old septic systems and develop educational materials.
Well, that's a good question. I think I'll go ahead and throw that in Jeremy's lap.
Yeah, just Mr. Chairman, as I'm going back in my memory, I think it was just I think the discussion was around finding the mechanisms to such as grant opportunities and federal funding, different funding sources to be able to look at the old septic systems in the county and look for ways to upgrade those to more modern systems. That's as I recall it.
That's what I recall. So usually it has to do with, like for instance, grants or funding opportunities for residents to apply through the county to upgrade their systems, old systems.
So maybe we clarify that language to say create grant or identify grant and funding opportunities or something like that.
I think that would be more definitive of what we're trying to do than create opportunities. That I just wasn't able to wrap my hands around that.
Okay.
Right, and once again, that's Objective A in Goal number 1. So the suggestion is to remove the language of create opportunities and instead identify
grant and funding opportunities.
Okay. This happens more often than people realize. I know a lot of people who, when they've tried to sell their home, they find out through the inspection process that they're going to have to replace or upgrade their septic before they can can close the deal. So in fact, the person right across the street from me had that happen to her. She was right on the verge of selling her house and found out that she had to do a $15,000 improvement on her septic system. So this is, I think this is an important goal, and it's something I think that does need to be identified in the plan. But I like that correction. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, I just didn't want to obligate us as a entity to be doing that.
Sure, I get it.
When we can provide.
I can appreciate it. Yes, Connie.
So the word create implies that the county will create that. I agree with you. So would it be better to do advocate for opportunities? Or because now if you, is the county willing to promote or, create or look for the opportunities for the citizen to change out their septic tanks or upgrade their old?
I might suggest using the word identify, funding opportunities or something like that,
Yeah.
because that's what we are. We do look for those. There is money available in the ARPA money that is available for just this sort of thing too, and that's what we're looking at right now. But yeah, we're not necessarily going to create those opportunities, but we can identify them and go after them at that point.
Okay, so that's practical. So somebody comes in there, you would have a list of grant money, basically, to change out septics, because that ARPA money will go away eventually.
Yeah, but those opportunities do come up, and we watch for those too.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Anything else that jumped out at you? So just right at goal number 1 to start with. Any other language there that looks like it could be tweaked, corrected, modified? Yes, Connie.
Can I make one more comment?
Sure,
I did
please.
read through this, and I actually was very happy with the changes in the verbiage. This, to support programs, encourage developments, advocate for reduction of water. Those, in my mind, are all exactly correct, because you're promoting it, but you're not mandating it, and you're not offering to do it yourself as a county. So thank you for doing that.
Sure. And thank you for the comment. Okay, moving to goal number 2. Same thing. Goal number 3.
Under number 3?
Yes.
I'd like an example of objective number C, develop standards to protect wildlife, urban interface areas.
Okay.
Again, I'm having a little bit of trouble.
That's a pretty thin description, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember back to the last meeting as well. Jessica, do you have any memory on that?
I thought that was more of putting in place in the code, putting in a code standard for transition.
That's kind of what I'm recalling as well, and that is something that, for instance, a good example right now would be Sedona Fire Department has just adopted a wildland urban interface code as part of their fire code to protect people from, to further protect properties from fire damage and things like that. So that would be more of a policy or a code type of a.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think there was some concern expressed at the last meeting concerning wildlife corridors, the ability for our wildlife to be able to move from one spot to another without getting hit by a car and so forth and so on. And so do we need to flesh out Objective C at all, or do we leave it the way it is for now?
May I speak to that?
Yes, please.
So, unless I'm mistaken, if you were a property, and I'm just going to use this as an example, if you were a property owner and you had a pretty well-known corridor for, let's say the antelope to go down there every single day, I don't know of any avenue that the county could stop somebody from blocking off that. Now, there are organizations, PETA, other organizations that get involved in those kinds of issues if it's a big major thing, and it can tie up, projects from people's property for a long, long time. But ultimately, it's up to the homeowner to make that decision if they want to keep that corridor open. Am I wrong in that? I mean, I haven't followed that a lot, but off and on I do, because I do, I love to drive out there, let's say to Chino Valley, and see all the wildlife out there. But I also know they're going to be building a grocery store out there someday. So, again, without adding more rhetoric to this thing, knowing that we really can't do anything. It's a desire, and that would be a great thing for the vision statement, but we can't in any way. I mean, I guess we could promote it if, if I was a landowner, and again, I had that, Animal Crossing there that was established for decades. I would myself love to keep that there, but a lot of people that are in the interest of making money or building a grocery store, they're not going to stop that. I mean, they're not going to not build there because the antelope, go across that property.
I think that objective C is more addressing new developments.
Right, exactly.
So I think that's why it's there. And maybe we should make that clearer to the reader.
Well, again, as a county, we can promote them doing something about preserving the wild, the animals crossing the property. But at the end of the day,
well, we
have, there's no
plan.
teeth. We can't. I don't.
So there, just as a reference, I actually submitted last night for a project in Pinal County, and they have a development standard. Part of their code requirements is to submit a map from Arizona Game and Fish showing habitat areas, riparian areas, and stuff impacting the site. And so, depending upon their code, which is what the development standards, I think we do need to flesh that out a little bit better. But it depends upon the county when they do a code update on the fire standards or whatever, how much they want to. If you, like for in the Pinal County, they said submit a map so we can see where the trail corridors are. How are you implementing this habitat area? Are you still providing areas for them to transverse through the site? So it can be part of the review process. You said, you can't prohibit them unless it's something nationally, put on books, but it can be made to be part of the review discussion and requests from staff. But until it's part of the development standards or an application process, then there's no teeth in it until then. So until something gets adopted, it's just objective. But I do think that you can make it something. If Fry's wants to come in and say, okay, well, we're going to ask you to give us 30 feet on this side, and you can have higher density on this side. So it can be like a discussion in the future. It just depends if you want to or not. And that's just, as the code gets flushed out and created, that's something that's another discussion meeting of things too.
John, you have a comment?
Yes, I think we are getting into the details and taking, specific examples like grocery stores, but one area that I think is really important is planned area developments. The developer will come up with something that he or she believes will benefit the community and maybe doesn't fit into existing zoning, so forth. They're given pluses and minuses. The county can say, well, this would be a positive thing, this would be a negative thing. That's a policy level thing, and those are trade-offs that can be made in approving a PAD. So the county does have some flexibility in terms of being able to state that we would like to see these things or we'd prefer not to see these other things. So I think there is an application for that.
Okay, very good. Do we want to include any language like travel corridors or anything like that for the wildlife preserving, so that they'll be able to move from one point to another point safely? A lot of developments already have those in the plans where they specifically set aside areas and lanes for the
That was actually on the last page of environmental element recommendations.
Okay.
It goes into more detail about those corridors.
Oh, great. Thank you for pointing that out. So,
Can
I'm sorry.
can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Oh,
Who am I talking to? There you go.
this thing is wild. Can you hear me okay? Aside from the dogs
Yes, I can.
barking in the background. So looking at this, my question is on that part that we're talking about. God, I tell you, my computer is bouncing around all over the place here. Where was it? Develop something. Where is it? I can't find it. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm trying to.
All three objectives, right?
But my question is, when we talk about developing the urban wildlife policies for the county, aren't the cities or the municipalities responsible for that? Because they would have a better handle on that than we would. And when all we would need to just collate all that information and just put it in the packet later on. Later on, does that make sense?
Yeah, well, typically, if it's within the city or town limits, they're going to have their own planning committee and so forth and so on, and they're going to have a considerable amount of control over any new development within their limits. This addresses countywide, essentially. We have a lot of open space, a lot of area that's still pretty prime for development at some point in time. And so I think, once again, we're taking this from 30,000 feet. And I'm not really sure we can flesh that out much more than it already is. Once again, thank you, Jessica, for pointing out that on the last page is the environmental element recommendations. And a lot of this stuff is more firmly fleshed out in those recommendations. So, that said, anything else? Is that good? How's your computer doing? Is it still jumping around on you? Well, we can see you in pretty much.
I found the objective finally. Yeah. It's just that I've got two screens going, and my laptop can't show everything at once. Unfortunately, I guess the limits of technology.
Okay. Well, good. Moving right along. Any of the other goals in that second element that jump out at you, or the environmental element recommendations? Anything that you see immediate room for correction, keeping in mind that this is not a finished document by any means. Yes, Jim.
Mr. Chair, I think under goal number 6, objective number C and objective number F seem to be a little bit redundant in my mind. Just wondering if we could incorporate those two into one sentence.
Actually, we could. I think we could take we could start with provide residents with easy access to dispose, landscaping, so forth and so on, and put that in the first sentence of C, if we wanted to. I'm getting a nod from Jeremy, so I guess it's doable.
Yeah, we can wordsmith that a little bit.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. And okay, moving right along. Anything else in that second element that jumps out at anybody? Any corrections to be made at this point in time? Keeping in mind that you're not being muted. If you spot anything later on, please let us know. Let Jeremy know or let Kaz know, and they can agendize it and give us an opportunity to iron it out at the following meeting. Okay, well, if there's nothing else in those two elements, let's go ahead and just get right down to working on the vision.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Kazi for the record. I apologize. I have a bad flu. That's why I'm not there today.
Oh, no.
I wanted to ask permission from the committee to see, as Dr. Black and you mentioned, that these are working documents, particularly the energy elements and the environmental elements. We have a provision in our website. When you go to our website, there's 8 elements out there, boxes. I like to put it up there for further public input. If anybody have questions or comments, they can go ahead and look at the document you have worked on so far and let them put their input. If that's all right, we like to go ahead and add those 2 documents in the web page so people can access those working documents.
I'd like to make a motion to do that.
Yes, Jessica, go ahead.
Usually it does not and once it's fleshed out, usually there's a vote that everybody here is before you do, or the other one before, or commission sees it, or the supervisors kind of review it before just for them to review it before it gets put on a website. So I would just encourage that, so that there's nothing that the commissioners or the supervisors are gonna, something that triggers a public member. They would like to know about it before somebody emails them.
Got it.
So.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think we'd like to have at least semi-finished products. Yes, go ahead, John.
My concern is that the public, we want input from the public. And when we're working on documents like this, they can listen to us talk about the document and say, I'd like to see this word changed to that, but they don't have the document in front of them. So they're not able to really follow what's going on. To me, that violates the spirit of the open meeting law. They should have that document in front of them while we're discussing it. We've had a chance to read it, study it, but you can't tell from our comments what's in the document. So I would like to see that document be made available. And as I mentioned before, we're labeling it with version 1, version 2, and so forth. So whatever the latest version is, I would like to see that made available to the public so that they can provide us with ongoing input. It's very difficult when you create a document of this size to dump it on the public all at once and say, now give us your input. It would be much better if we would get that on an ongoing basis.
Well, yeah, go ahead, please.
I actually, this is Andrea Shelton. When I release the packet to the members 1 week prior to the scheduled meeting, I do put it on the webpage, so they do have access to the agenda and the packet as well.
Okay.
Now, something that's been mentioned to me a couple of times is that the public doesn't really know where to look. And so I'm thinking somewhere along the way, we're probably going to have to do a little bit more advertising, a little bit more. And in fact, I think Connie has a word or two on that. So Connie, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, and what I think everybody has kind of off and on sort of lamented is that we're not getting as much participation from the citizens as we would all hope. So we've decided we're going to do a radio show on December 28th. And Dr. Black, it'd be great if you would be a call-in. You can call in and make a point or explain something to the citizens. We have a full hour, minus, of course, the breaks, the advertisement. But we're going to try to raise the visibility about CPAC and try to get more people to weigh in. This will be an attempt, and we can do it a couple of times if we need to. But I too am disappointed that we don't have more participants. I think this is a time for people to weigh in. Now, whether or not their comments are, taken seriously and added to the document, we'll have to decide that later on. But I think it's an opportunity to get the word out in a different way to the public, to get, try to get them to go on the website. And we need to make it easy. I do agree. It can't be a difficult thing if they get on the website. And we will give the website out several times during the show. But we need to make it easy on the participants because most people don't have a lot of time. They want to, weigh in real quickly and be able to do that without having to fish through a website.
Mary, you have a comment?
I do. I am wholly supportive of getting these documents up as soon as possible because I think we want our communities to know that these are works in progress and that their opinions are really important. I also think that when we put them up, we should have a paragraph qualifying to some degree how this is going to be used because we're not going to guarantee every comment is going to get put into, into these different elements so that we don't have people out there assuming, well, I've made this statement and it is going to be put in. I think we need to be very careful in how we introduce this into the community and getting their recommendations. I think that would be really important. And then if someone even comes back, because we all know that there are some people we work with that thinks their opinion is the only one, if you will, we also have then the qualifications as a part of it and not a commitment that everything that is given back is going to be incorporated into the plan.
That's a good recommendation. Thank you. Anything else? Yes, John. Please.
One comment. In talking to people in the community, I have several times had people say to me, I'm not going to bother because no one will pay any attention to what I do. I think having the public see the document evolving and understanding that we're making updates based on inputs will do a lot to build public interest in the process. So I was not aware that the packet was actually being posted along with the agenda. That's a great idea, and I think we just need to make people aware of the fact that it's available to them. Not everyone, in fact, very few people are going to delve deeply into these documents, but the ones that do, I think we could benefit greatly from because many times people have expertise in an area and they will read that particular document, whatever that element is.
Right. John, did you receive the latest email from Andrea that had a link on it that you could go to look at the packet and agenda?
I do receive the packet, and it has, for example, all of these drafts for the elements. I think that's excellent. It gives me a chance to study them before the meeting. But my concern was that the public also be able to do the same thing. And
the
as
best way
we're
now-
discussing in the meeting, they would have
Andre?
it, so.
Yes, it is. She's nodding yes. So we just need to make that information available to as many people as possible. Connie, you had a comment?
Yeah, for the record, John and Mary and anybody else that would like to weigh in, this show is going to be on December 28th, so put that in your calendars. The show starts at 4:06.
And the number to call?
And the number, yeah, is 928-541-1016. And it's KYCA. So again, December 28th, 4:06 in the afternoon, 928-541-1016.
Do you know if
Could
you have
you
the
send out an email to the members of the committee
Yes.
a day or two prior to that meeting?
something good to send around to?
Yes, in fact, if at the end of the show, by 8 o'clock that same evening that a show takes place, they post it on their website. So you could go to kyca.info, and then you go into the PM show archives. So there'll be a drop down on the upper left-hand corner. So kyca.info, and go into the PM show archives, and you'll be able to listen to that show minus all the advertising. And then if you want to record it, we tell people, get your phone out, press your recorder, your iPad, go ahead and play that back and record it on your device, and then you can actually link it up to a website or whatever you have. But hopefully between Jeremy and Kevin, we're going to devise a very comprehensive list so we can try to cover everything and do as much explaining to the public as possible and try to drum up some interest in it so that they'll have a place to go to do this. But if you want to call in and make a comment, please do, because if we've missed something or you want to make a point, that's an opportunity to get it out. The station does have a pretty large listenership. The show's right after Hannity. So it's got a big bulk of people. We just need to grab them in that first 3 seconds to get them interested in the topic. So it's a great opportunity to weigh in if you'd like to.
Speaking of weighing in, Mary, you have something?
I do. If someone there at the county could actually draft a paragraph about this and send it out to our communities. I mean, I know in the Verde Valley, we have several, particularly county communities, that have e-newsletters. So we need to be widely publicizing this and making it known. And I think if everyone were provided a draft of a paragraph that could go into those e-newsletters or an easy way to send the information out to the communities, that would be great.
Mr. Chairman, to Mary's point there, we are working with our PIO right now, the county PIO, to put out a press release on the comprehensive plan, and we have put out some other information on our Facebook page and things like that as well. So we're getting more information out to the public.
Okay, thank you. And I thought I saw another hand up. Yes, Connie.
Mary, I actually had a conversation with David McTee, and I'm not sure of his exact title, but I believe it's the liaison between the county, is that correct, and the news outlet? News outlets?
That's who I was referring to.
Yeah, David McTee.
David McAtee.
Right, McAtee. Yeah, and he kind of also expressed the need for a little bit more advertising on some of the committees also. So there is hope for that. And if Jeremy's talked to him, that's great. That's encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know that they're necessarily going to see a press release. I'm just thinking of the county communities, very honestly, in the Verde Valley. Beaver Creek has their own e-newsletter. The Village of Oak Creek does. The Cornville Association, et cetera, have their own e-newsletter. So if we gave them a paragraph, not a press release, but a paragraph about it with the information, it could easily be emailed to the individuals, and I can help take care of that in the Verde Valley if we need to do that. That it was written up, and we could just send it out to them and say, please incorporate this in your next e-newsletter. And we would then be reaching, very honestly, thousands of people in another way as well that might not necessarily see the press release.
Point well taken, and I never say no to a volunteer, so I'm certain that you're going to be receiving some information to help us disseminate in the near future. Thank you. John, you had a comment.
Yes, I just wanted to kind of follow up with what she's saying. I think the county could do a lot more to leverage the community groups. Each of these groups has a list of members and a regular newsletter. Keeps It on a Beautiful, for example, really promoted the first survey, and that's why you've got so many responses, I believe. So the county has its list, but I think there's a lot of community organizations that could greatly expand making the public aware of what's going on. So it's a matter of leveraging that.
Okay, thank you. And I'm certain we're going to have a well-concerted public information endeavor in the near future.
Yes, sir.
I'm seeing nodding heads, so.
I'll be happy to work with your volunteers.
Right, that's going to happen, and everybody's happy to work with volunteers. Just once again, Mary, you're not off the hook. We're going to be providing you with that paragraph to start disseminating in the near future, and we'll start getting the information out a little bit better than we are now. I'd love to see much better participation than we're getting at this time.
I am happy to
Anything
help
else?
any way I can.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, good. Well, let's dive into the vision statement. Everybody's had an opportunity to read through the Yavapai County, the current existing Yavapai County vision statement, hopefully. It's pretty wordy. I've always preferred vision statements that you can actually remember and be able to roll right off the top of your head. Something that maybe has about 5 elements in it or something that you can use mnemonics on or something and be able to repeat with ease. But anyways, this is a start. This is something for us to work with. The next page, of course, is the vision statement elements that were already introduced when we did our little brainstorming session. And what I would like to do with the rest of this meeting is jump right back into that brainstorming again. Everyone's had an opportunity to see these elements and see if there's anything else you would like to make sure is included in the vision statement as we're kind of getting it together slowly but surely. Once again, it's not going to be a finished product for a long time down the road, but we might as well flesh it out as best we can. So, yes, Mary, please.
I wanted to make a recommendation, but maybe it's not quite ready yet, Mr. Chairman. You're right. I think there may be other elements that we need here, but I think this is one of those things that is difficult to do in a group setting like this. Would it be in keeping with our public meeting, et cetera, to say to each one of us on the committee, in preparation for the next meeting, please put statements or comments by each of these if there are things that you want incorporated, because it doesn't necessarily just have to be each bullet point. We might want to define it a little bit, but if each one of us, if we were willing to add some information to it, and then Jeremy, you could collate all of those and bring them together, and we would have a working document that started to be fleshed out instead of maybe trying to negotiate it during a meeting. What do you think?
Well, that sounds perfectly fine with me. Any way we can get the job done effectively. Go ahead, Jeremy.
And Mr. Chairman, yeah, to Mary's point also, this was some information here that was provided, I believe, by you, Mary, right? After the last meeting.
It was.
And I think our purpose here today is to kind of start that conversation. And if we had the committee members kind of throwing out their adjectives, their ideas, their thoughts on what that is, we want to take that back today and start working on putting together a draft. And of course, as we've been talking about this morning, we can, any ideas that come up in between meetings, you send those over to Kazi and I. We start incorporating those as well. But we want to get a draft going so that we have something for the committee to look at next time and keep working on too. Again, it's not going to be a finished product at any time.
Well, I'm hoping as a result of this meeting that we can give them enough material so that they can at least cobble together a draft vision statement for us to start working with.
And I think we're set up also, Andrea, if I'm not mistaken, we're all set up to be able to put the Word document on the board and just kind of paste everybody's ideas as we go. There we go.
There we go.
All right.
That's good.
Can everybody see that over in Cottonwood?
Yes. Connie, you had a comment.
Well, just going back here on the existing Yavapai County vision statement, the existing one, if I were rewriting this, or not rewriting it, all the information is pertinent. But for me, as a busy person, what I would love to have seen is like above, let's say, paragraph number 1, where it starts off with the guiding vision for Yavapai County Comprehensive Plan, maybe the heading, you would be achieving our common goals would be the heading of that. Then you can go into the reading. And then let's just say in that second paragraph where it starts off, our vision is to protect the unique quality of life. Maybe we put number 2, protecting and enhancing our rural character. That would be the heading of that paragraph. Then let's say the next paragraph, paragraph 3, could start off with the county has vast recreational outdoor opportunities, period, and then go into the body of the information. So if I'm in a hurry, again, I want to be able to read those bullet points, and then I'll dial in on the paragraph that I find interesting or whatever. It just sums it up quicker, because remember, we only have a 3-second soundbite to kind of grab people. So when I looked at this whole thing, I was like, oh God, let me sit down with a cup of coffee and read it. But if I had all those little bullet points, I could, know what the body of it says basically, and go back and read it further later in the areas that were interested to me.
And so, Mr. Chairman, if you're okay with it, we'll start with that. Maybe on the Word document, we'll add that as a point to add headers or bullet points to each paragraph. We can start with that.
Well, actually, that's my preference. Once again, as I mentioned before, I love having a vision statement that I can just almost rattle right off the top of my head. And the best way to do that is to have bullets that I can memorize. And then I'll fill in the bullets as I go along. But I think that's a more effective vision statement. Does everybody kind of sort of agree with me on that? I see some nodding heads anyways. Yes, Mary. Go ahead,
I
Mary.
would agree with that. I also think about 50% of the verbiage in this paragraph, in this first page, needs to go away. It needs to be clean. It needs to be concise. As we've all talked about, it needs to be, and especially you, Mr. Chair, something that we remember. Points like that, and if we, like I said, even if we have some paragraphs or sentences underneath them to qualify, I think is fine. But by looking at the bullet points, people are going to say, this is what our vision is. This is what we stand for. This is the standard that shapes our decision-making process.
I love it. Actually, I think well, we will go ahead and incorporate those comments actually probably right into the vision as stated. Let's go ahead and take a look at those elements, the 7 elements that were provided. I believe there's 7 of them there. Yeah. And first of all, let me just read them off, because we have them up there on the board. Okay, you can see them. Collaboration and cooperation through community engagement. That's nice. It's a little fluffy, but it's. I think it moves in the right direction. Is there anything we can do to wordsmith that a little bit and make it more effective? I think everybody's kind of sort of happy with it then. Okay.
Well, could we take out the collaboration, and I'm just throwing this out, doesn't matter to me, but if we took out collaboration and cooperation through community engagement, and we put something like enhancing community engagement, or, promoting community participation, or, just something. But now, would this be at the top of the vision statements? And if somebody wanted to go, like, let's say, preserving and embracing our rural heritage, if they wanted to read more about the details, then they can go back into the wordy paragraphs, correct?
Or that could be the highlighted bullet.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's great.
Preceding the paragraph.
Yeah, thank you, that's great.
And I think that's probably the way to write it. Jessica? Yeah. Oh, okay, I thought maybe that couldn't deal with you raising your. Okay, anyway, so the suggestion is kind of drop the words collaboration and cooperation through community engagement, or what was your thought on that?
Well,
Connie?
I was just thinking promoting community engagement. It's just quicker, simpler. It says the same thing. Collaboration and cooperation is a little bit of a tongue tie twister, but
yeah.
Say that 5 times fast.
I won't even try, thanks. And I've had my coffee this morning, but how does everybody feel about that, promoting community engagement as opposed to collaboration and cooperation through? Yes, Mary?
I totally disagree.
Oh,
because we're
great.
not promoting it. We are saying that communicate, and that's been our entire discussion this morning, of getting things up on the website and ensuring collaboration and cooperation. It's not just promoting it. We are saying that that's critical to our work, to our success, to implementing our vision. And we can maybe get rid of the word cooperation, because if you have collaboration, you've got cooperation. But it's not just promoting community engagement. We have an expectation of ourselves that we collaborate together through community engagement.
How about
Okay.
community engagement is vital?
Here's a suggestion, taking actually from the existing vision statement actually has a lot of good sentences in it, but like you guys said, there's like 50% is just fluff.
Right.
And so one of the things in here I think that works well, maybe you want to, is like provide community engagement for collaborative planning partnerships. And that kind of is, you know, you're trying to get the engagement because this isn't, like you mentioned, this isn't a encouragement or an objective. It's what you want it to be. This is more of a finite, what the goal is to be. And so I don't, you know.
But would that be the bullet point?
Yeah, could you play that bullet point back for me again? I kind of liked it. It had a good flow to it, but.
Provide community engagement for collaborative planning partnerships. Provide community engagement for collaborative planning partnerships. And that's actually stolen from one of the statements on the existing, where they talk about, they actually talk about open communication and planning partnerships.
Okay, that cuts more to the chase, at least. Actually, it's a little bit easier to say. But how does everybody feel about that modification of that bullet preceding that element or that statement, that portion?
Well, if it's a little longer, then I would say just go back to the shorter version, but it says the same thing, right?
Collaboration, cooperation through community engagement.
Okay, get rid of the word provide, because that creates inconsistency in what we're stating. I mean, I think if we want to change the language, we can say community engagement through collaboration, if that's kind of more what the paragraph is saying. But again, it's short and sweet as far as the bullet point goes.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I like that, actually, through collaboration. Keeping in mind that we're all going to have to memorize these bullets and be able to talk about them in public. Yeah. Kidding.
So then we get rid of the first part up there, the collaboration and cooperation through.
Right, community engagement through collaboration. Okay, I like it. And any other comments on that first bullet? Okay, well, moving right along to preserving and embracing our rural heritage.
That's pretty straightforward.
I think it's pretty straightforward too. And a lot of people are going to insist on seeing that as a portion of our vision, I'm sure. But any suggestions for wordsmithing? I'm not really sure you could do anything else with that, but how about responsible and balanced growth? Yeah, okay. Effective infrastructure.
Why don't we just talk about that one for a minute? What do we mean when we say effective infrastructure? It's kind of nebulous in my mind, and I'd like to have a little more understanding of what we're trying to accomplish there.
Because of course we're talking about everything that surrounds developments and new.
So you're talking about roads?
Right, roads. Mm-hmm. All the. Well, let's see. What
roads, broadband, sewer.
County responsible for roads?
Yeah, roads. Yeah, that's primarily it. The flood control type of things. A lot of that, on an independent basis or an individual basis, the basics of there's a wastewater system up in Seligman, Ash Fork area. There is the three airports that the county maintains. A lot of that goes through the Public Works Department in terms of the infrastructure.
So do we want to say effective infrastructure as supported by?
Well, and I might suggest deferring this to Mary, because this was since this was her suggestion. Maybe she can kind of flesh it out a little bit.
Go, Mary.
And I think I would agree with you, because it's kind of nebulous, but let me tell you where I was coming from. I mean, and we're all engaged in this. I mean, broadband's a huge issue. Our septic and water systems are huge issues. Roads are huge issues. Those are all critical components of infrastructure, and we need them to be working and effective, if you will. So maybe we add a couple of words, you know, and this isn't the right way to say it, but even like quality service through effective infrastructure, or I'm at a loss for the words at the moment. Sorry.
What about progressive infrastructure, which implies that we're staying,
good.
we're not ignoring it, you know?
Well, and Mr. Chairman, too, that's where I was,
Okay.
that's where I was trying to make the distinction as well, because things like, you know, things like wastewater systems, septic systems are individual to each property owner who has a septic system. The county doesn't necessarily have a wastewater system apart from the one up in the Seligman area, but a public system anyway. So I'm trying to differentiate in my head, you know, the individual property owner's infrastructure that is required for a home, you know, a well and a wastewater system, versus what the county's going to, and having progressive infrastructure certainly makes sense.
Well, again, you know, I take a look at, if we have need for road someplace, then we have a road district set up. If we need water someplace, we have a water district set up. The county approves that. You know, I mean, if some Yarnell comes and says we want to establish a water district, they give us letter of intent, we look at it and we say, okay, go ahead and establish one, and then we help them develop that, and then they manage it. So I'm not sure if that's what we're trying to say here is, you know, ensure that, you know, water systems, septic systems, road systems in various areas are being effectively managed by the county with the district that, you know, desires to have that infrastructure. I don't know, I'm still trying to grasp where we're going with this one.
And yeah, actually, to your point too, Supervisor Oberg, I think it is good to keep it, I would suggest anyway, keeping it as a fairly broad topic, because a lot of that we're going to be discussing in the water element. We're going to be talking about it in the transportation element too. So we're going to dig down a little further into some of this infrastructure and some of the other elements as well. So this could be, you know, a fairly broad statement anyway. It's part of our.
I don't have a problem with it being broad. I just want to have it so that people, when they read it, they understand what we're trying to get at. And I'm not sure we're there yet. Yeah.
So again, I'm stealing from the first page just to give you some ideas to like go out. So on there I have balance and provide quality infrastructure, resource management, and public services. Is where it was hit before. So that's the big one, I think, with infrastructure, is always the balance, maintenance, making sure you're not stretched thin. And they're always talking about.
What about prioritizing? Or enhancing, or
yeah,
something.
Because the big one that comes up with land use is, Jeremy, I can't think of the words, like where you don't skip. It's you're not skipping over developments. You're being the next one in line gets priority because you're encouraging development and next to the existing infrastructure. You know what I mean?
Progressing, not progressive. No.
You're talking about prioritization?
No, it's because where you encourage infrastructure to occur instead of leapfrogging. Do you know what I mean? Infill, yeah. It's just I forget the word is right now. It's all the planners use it and I can't think of it, but that's always a big one when it comes to infrastructure, is trying to hit the balance of maintaining and expanding without, you know, like I know in some jurisdictions they annex areas. It goes reverse for the county, but they annex areas and then realize the infrastructure cost after the annexation and then de-annex. So trying to make sure the county doesn't, you know, I know there's areas they were talking about with that big PAD, and they're wondering about where the infrastructure is coming from. So that's like usually a goal of where you prioritize and approve developments. You don't want them out in the middle of nowhere. You want them next to infrastructure. So the logical expansion and growth of a plant or a freeway or a roadway can be expanded appropriately.
So it sounds like we need to plant the word in front of effective infrastructure, promote or.
And I think Jessica just picked a great word. I was going to say, what about appropriate infrastructure?
Mm-hmm. I would suggest the two words.
As opposed to effective infrastructure, just appropriate infrastructure?
Well, it might be a little better, yeah.
Well,
okay. I got a little better on that one.
Or priority. What about infrastructure priorities?
How about prioritize
Prioritizing infrastructure.
effective infrastructure or
No, because this is what we want it to look like. What do we want for our infrastructure? I can't read that.
Well, what if we just add that word, prioritizing effective infrastructure?
Well, and John has the suggestion, well-planned and maintained infrastructure.
How about continuous infrastructure improvements?
Ooh,
Yeah, I like that one.
that works.
Just say it again.
What? Continuous infrastructure improvements.
I like it.
Yep, that's really good.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Great.
That fits. It works. Once again, at the 30,000-foot level.
Yeah.
Okay, regenerative stewardship of natural resources.
Again, I'll be the curmudgeon here and just say, what are we trying to say there with the regenerative? Are we talking water? Are we talking wildlife corridors?
All.
I'm just kind of getting an understanding what we're going there.
How about respecting our natural resources?
Well,
I think it's bigger than that. And this Supervisor Michaels, this was hers, so I'm going to advocate for what she put in here, okay? Because the whole point is we're stewarding them. On the other hand, we know we've lost some of our natural resources. So the regeneration is to grow them and not just steward what we have, but also grow them and gain back, if you will, what we've lost as far as our natural resources, whether it's water, habitat, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the thought process behind here. It's more than just stewarding it. It's really working to regenerate it.
and making it effective. Is that the idea? So we could say maybe regenerative, effective stewardship of natural resources?
Or renewing our natural, protecting and renewing.
How about renewing and stewardship?
How's the county do that?
Yeah. How about just respecting? Because we're respecting it.
Yeah, as I see it here, the idea is to responsibly steward the resources that we have and to look at ways for future, renewing the resources that we've lost or growing new resources.
Okay, how about responsible, regenerative stewardship of natural resources?
Well, maybe what we do is instead of putting some of these qualifier words in here, we put them in bullets underneath this key one. And I think our vision is the importance of natural resources. And then underneath that in a paragraph, maybe we define regeneration and stewardship and a few things like that.
So you're talking about prioritizing. So we could say prioritize regenerative stewardship of natural resources.
Well, instead of regenerative, I think responsible stewardship of natural resources makes a lot of sense to me. Let's talk about wildlife corridors. I mean, you can go out in Prescott Valley right now, and there's so much growth out there. I mean, many of the wildlife corridors out there are gone. You're not going to regenerate those again. I think what we have to do is save the ones that are still out there that the animals are using. You know, save that habitat in the future by responsible planning when we have a pad come in and make sure that we understand that these corridors exist, work with the game and fish and try and ensure that maybe that becomes the open area in that particular development so that, you know, the animals do have the ability to, you know, communicate through the area. So I think responsible includes regenerative to an extent. I mean, obviously, when we talk about water, anything we can do to harvest water, you know, or reuse it, recover it, you know, to me, that's regenerative. So I think, again, we're being responsible if we're advocating that, and I agree with Mary, make those maybe bullets under this particular heading bullet of responsible stewardship of natural resources.
And talk about regenerative and so forth under it.
All the detail can
All
go
the detail
underneath
can
it.
go underneath it. Does that work?
Perfect.
Okay, John?
John?
Okay, anyways, I think that was a yes. Okay, next up, ensuring healthy communities and quality of life.
I like that.
I do too. And I think it's within our realm to be able to ensure through all the tools that are at our disposal. Okay, well, the last one, ensuring educational excellence.
I like it.
I guess my problem with this one is, do we have responsibility for educational excellence at the county? I know we have, the superintendent of schools, but I'm not sure that we have a lot of responsibility here, and I'm not sure how we would lay this out in our plan. I think we would have more responsibility for economic development than I would, educational excellence. So
I think it's a vision
just food for
statement.
thought, whether or not maybe we should be talking economic development and not education.
Yeah, it strikes me
I
that
think
the
it
ensuring
is-
educational excellence is kind of a feel-good statement. I don't know how much control we really have over that in our comprehensive plan, but
Maybe we could encourage it at this point.
yeah.
And I think we are.
I think
If someone's developing a project, a PUD, maybe they can have educational facilities included in a larger project or something like that. But I don't think we want to insure, because as a county, that's putting us into an awkward position.
Okay, John, you have something to say, and then Jeremy's got a comment he would like to make.
Yes.
Go ahead, John.
I don't think we can say we have a vision statement that ignores educational excellence. I think the future of our county, the economy, and the well-being of our citizens is going to depend on educational excellence. So whether we use ensuring or promoting or whatever, I think we ought to at least state that that's part of the vision for the future of our county.
But would that come under ensuring healthy communities and quality of life? Would educational opportunities or ensuring that be under one of the other bullets?
I think education is important enough and fundamental enough, especially in our fast-changing society. People need to learn for the entire length of their life. We no longer get educated and then work. We intersperse the two. So it's part of the pulse of the economy and of the future of the county.
Well, how about prioritize then? We can give it a high priority number. But I'm not really sure we can ensure it.
Well, I think you could tie it with the economic development aspect
Right.
of encourage educational opportunities, career advancement, and growth, so that you're trying to create your job, your employment base. You want to retain is the big issue with everybody, is retaining your students to stay here, to grow here, to work here. So it's a combination of not just the education, but providing them opportunities to stay and live here.
Right.
So it's got to be something together.
So move that into under the economic development heading. Is that what you're saying, or?
No, I wouldn't put it under, I mean, I'm still, but like, as far as a bullet, it doesn't need to be, they don't need to be just under the element topics.
Well, I love the word promoting, because that's about what the county can do. They can promote education excellence, but you're right, to your point, we really don't have any control over that.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, too, I've been hearing, from the committee members that education is a priority, at least with this committee and with the county. So that is, that is something, I agree with Mr. Peterson, with Jim. We could say something like, we encourage educational excellence, and that's going to keep it at that broad level. And then, as Jessica was saying too, we tie that with the economic development side of things. And that does fit in, with that particular element, without committing to anything that we don't have responsibility for.
Okay, so.
I would suggest that anyway.
Anyways, yeah, encourage educational excellence. What do you think? The next thing I want to talk about is as Harry mentioned, is the economic development that we want to. It seems like that's something we probably would like to address in our plan.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. And these, what we have in front of us here is what Mary had submitted to us. So we're certainly not limited to these, to these priorities as well. We can certainly add more to the list.
Well, I'd like to. Harry, do you have any suggestions as far as how we could word that?
Well, I'm just wondering if we could make it to where it would encompass both education and economic excellence.
I don't think it can. I mean, economic development is much broader than just education, if you will. Because I was even thinking as we were talking about promoting educational excellence, we could even add and workforce development under that bullet, which is clearly a part of the education piece as a thought. Give me a second to come up with some words related to economic development. Or you all
Well,
can.
Kind of like the idea of trying to tie them together, though. I think that makes sense.
Can I say something?
Community at large understand that and be very interested in supporting that.
So we can make it simple and just say encourage educational excellence and economic development. Boom.
I think we're mixing sort of apples and oranges by doing that.
Okay. But I'm perfectly content with having it as its own separate statement.
Okay.
So what can we do with economic development? Would we say encourage? Would we say promote? Would we say?
I like to encourage educational excellence because I think that's what we can do more than ensuring. I think a lot of education requirements come down from state. And, they go through the superintendent of instruction. He handles it within the county. We manage some of his finances. We support him with infrastructure, but, a lot of that is really out of our hands as I see it. And if I'm wrong, I'd like to have somebody explain that to me.
What about the word supporting? Supporting
We already have
educational
a
excellence.
program like this. It's called CTE.
Say more. Tell us about CTE.
CTE is a program that all schools, I wouldn't say all schools, but I know for working at Humboldt Unified School District that we have a CTE program that teaches kids how to work, a specific skill that translates into a field, like a nursing or drafting or 3D, or just something that's work related. But this program is in place and it's out there. And to me, I don't think we need to worry about this whole piece and just concentrate on the development side of the county instead of dealing with educational any educational matters, because the system's already in place. We've got school boards, we've got the CTE program. I mean, and there's many other programs that are already in place doing this for us. So I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think we need to worry about this piece in our vision statement.
Connie, go ahead.
But again, just from the 30,000 foot level, as a county, we want to say something that we are promoting it, or we're not going to stand in the way as a county. It's important to the people in the county. We don't, again, the detail that CTE exists, I think that's great, but that doesn't have to really be in here. This is the vision statement. Just the county promotes it.
Well, right now we're at encourage educational excellence.
Or encourages it, right?
And we're looking for something to address economic development, promote economic development, or however we would like to say
I think
it.
that's great.
Does promote work?
Works for me.
Okay, works for John. I think that's a good sign right there. Promote. Okay, so that's our 8th bullet, has been developed now. Anything else? Anything else that we feel is just lacking from the vision statement that we're attempting to develop?
Well, I've always felt that, since I've been the supervisor, that one of our most primary responsibilities is customer service. And I think we need to have something in here that talks about improving or something about customer service, because I talk to so many people that, when they start dealing with county bureaucracy, they get lost, they get frustrated. And really, I think customer service is one of our primary functions.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because it has been a focus recently with the new website that they've put up and a lot of other things they're doing now, where you can, for instance, you can apply for a permit online, which we did. We were one of the first ones to do that, by the way, my wife and I. But it works well. And so I think it's a good idea to include a bullet, an element for customer service.
Do we dare use the word streamlining? Streamlining the customer service, because you're right, there's a lot of, I've worked with the county in the past, and there's just a lot of red tape to jump over.
Actually, I like that word.
Red tape?
No, it's streamlining. I love red tape, sure. Well, what do you think, streamlining customer service?
Yeah, but can we? We can't say something unless we really do it.
Well, we have more control over that than anybody else, the planning department and, the county in general.
I might suggest, in addition to streamlining, but enhancing.
Enhancing customer experiences, or
instead of streamlining.
I would include streamlining as well, enhance and streamline, or something like that.
Experience, yeah.
Okay, enhancing and streamlining customer service.
or just one or the other?
Well,
Probably just
I don't mind both of them.
enhancing customer. Okay.
I can memorize both of them.
Okay.
So we want that to read.
I would suggest enhancing customer service.
Drop streamlining? Okay.
Because some of it,
Enhancing customer service.
some of it cannot be streamlined. As much as I've tried in the city of Prescott, it's a difficult task to streamline. There's just so many documents and, T's to cross and I's to dot. So sometimes it is impossible, but we don't want to create roadblocks either.
Yeah. And once again, what we're doing right now is we're providing more, I guess, the skeleton for the vision statement, and then we're going to hand this back over to staff, and at our next meeting, which will be maybe on January 13th. I don't think we've resolved that quite yet, but at our next meeting, we will be able to review something that's already been kind of put together for us, a working document that we can additionally, after we address it at our next meeting, we can also put it on our website for everybody else to take a look at and get their comments. Once again, with a caveat in the very beginning, letting everybody know this is a draft. These are our current. This is what we're doing so far as putting this plan together. And we would love any input you can provide and so forth and so on. But that's the direction we'll be taking this in from this point on. So, are there any other elements in the vision statement that we haven't addressed? Yes, Mary.
Well, this isn't an element, but this is sort of grammatical. If we could take all of these and change the language, for example, from preserving and embracing to preserve and embrace our rural heritage. Get rid of the ing words. So we just have everything consistent in how we're phrasing it. Much more a powerful way of stating things.
So you're saying a more
preserve and
active
enhance.
voice. Right. Okay. I agree with that. That's a good writing. You don't write, do you? Okay. Never mind. I'm always looking for volunteers. Okay. So and then maybe the same with ensuring healthy communities and quality of life. Just say ensure healthy communities and quality of life. You think?
Exactly. And then enhance customer service.
Okay. And enhance customer service, and just drop the ing, right?
Yep.
All the way down. Preserve, responsible, so forth and so on. All the way down, get all the INGs out of there. It'll make it read quite a bit better. Now, anything else we want to include? Once again, keeping in mind that the next thing we're going to do is drop this in the staff's lap and say, okay, give us some sort of a draft product to work with now.
And when we're doing that, if we could reorder them, let's put in a order of what is our top priority, sort of moving down in them. As a
Well, if
thought.
everybody's satisfied that we have all the bullets we're going to work with, then let's go ahead and prioritize. I'm good with that. Mary, do you have an idea which one you would like to see first?
I love the community engagement
I do
right
too.
off the bat as number one, because that's kind of the first step. Let's engage the community. What do you think, Mary?
I agree.
Okay, so that's number one. So going right down the line. Yes, John?
And then I think I would put the ensure healthy communities and quality of life.
Let's see. Healthy community, okay, is number two? How's everybody feel about that?
Yeah.
That makes good sense to me. I like it. It's cleaner and it's easier to remember too, by the way, when you put it in that order. What do you think for number three? Responsible
Then
and balanced
probably
growth?
preserve and embrace our rural heritage.
Okay. And then maybe for number four, responsible and balanced growth?
Sure, and that followed by responsible stewardship.
Okay. So that would be five. So I've got, in order now, it's actually 1, 3, 4, 5, 2 down the line. And how about encourage educational excellence? Or promote
I would
economic
agree.
development?
Either one of those could go next.
Okay, what's everybody think? Which one should be number 6? Promote economic development or encourage educational excellence?
I think that promote economic development makes more sense to be next.
That's number 6. And then number 7, encourage educational excellence, and then wrap it up with customer service? That's fine.
Yes.
Okay, I got a couple of nods, and that's fine, good, okay, well, that's the 8 elements that we're gonna hand over to staff to work with now.
And so we have that on the screen right now. Is that everybody's in agreement with that?
I'm not.
Good, you took all the ings out, yeah, I like that.
A comment. Of the, what is it, 9 you've got up there, all but
8,
3 begin
the
with
9
a
up there?
verb. Pardon?
No, we do have
Okay.
9, okay.
For example,
missed one then.
ensure healthy communities. Ensure is a verb. Preserve and embrace. Preserve is a verb. Then you get down to responsible and balanced growth. Should it be provide, or should it be, community engagement through collaboration? Should that be engage communities through collaboration? I'm just talking about a consistent structure where you start with a verb, an action verb. You've done
Yeah,
that
you're the
for
wordsmith.
all but 3.
So the first one, you'd want to have engage communities
Engage
through
communities
collaboration?
Through collaboration,
Okay,
Okay.
that's good, I like that, it's better.
You got ensure, then you got preserve and embrace, but then you got responsible and balanced growth. Should that be provide or encourage or something?
No.
And also responsible stewardship.
can't provide it.
That was a verb.
Yeah, I don't, I'm hearing murmurings of, that's not something we can provide.
Okay. I'm just saying that we don't have a
I understand
consistent
what you're
structure
saying, and
there.
I agree
We
with
were
you.
talking about an action verb at the beginning is very effective, I think.
Well, it's more consistent. So let's see what we have there.
But remember,
Yeah.
these are not in a sentence, these are just titles.
Yeah,
Titles.
the first one is engage communities through collaboration.
Right. Yeah, that's how the first one should be. Engage communities through, so that community will change to communities. Yes, Connie?
Is it a problem that we use a verb if we're just, these are not in a sentence structure, they're just a title? So is it inappropriate to use a verb? Dr. Black?
I don't think so.
I feel that action verbs are very effective in terms of communicating. And I guess.
Yeah, once again,
bothers
these are
me
just
that we're
headings
using
for
scissors.
the,
Yeah, exactly.
so that's I think
you know,
it doesn't ruffle my feathers. I like having an action verb. It's a good way to start off.
So for the 2 responsibles, number what, 4 and 5, what word would we have in front of responsible?
Mr. Chairman, I might suggest
Promote or?
encourage. We've been using promote and encourage. You know, that's not something that we can provide, but we can certainly encourage it at this point.
I agree.
Okay, encourage.
We need to leave the responsible in, just add
Yeah.
the word in front of it.
Right. Yeah.
Encourage and balanced growth.
Yeah, we need to add responsible back in. So it's encourage responsible and balanced growth.
Yeah.
There we
No,
go.
next-
And, well,
No,
we're
no,
getting
no,
there.
it's-
Just a sec. Leave it there. It goes in both of them.
Oh, both of them, okay. That's-
Okay, it's
both?
encourage responsible stewardship.
Okay,
Okay? And then
then
the
go-
one above should be encourage responsible and balanced growth.
okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Good, well, we have.
Number 7 is continuous. We probably need to have an action verb there.
Yeah,
Promote.
continuous infrastructure improvements.
How about provide?
Well, again, that comes down to money.
So, we can promote, but we can't ensure provide at this point for any one item, one issue, but how's it look? What do you think? Much more consistent now, isn't it?
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
okay, I'm gonna-
Take this back and.
Mary, you have something, I'm sorry, real quick, Jeremy. Let's let Mary jump in.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mary.
Sorry, I'm gonna throw another piece in here because this is our vision statement and we're even going to have some words underneath it. Do we have to put, these things in front of it? I mean, we can talk about, let's say, our vision is customer service, right? Our vision is quality customer service. We don't have to enhance it. Our vision is quality customer service. Our vision is continuous infrastructure improvements, educational excellence, economic development, responsible stewardship of natural resources, responsible and balanced growth. We don't even have to have that extra word in there because that's our vision, and I think the words are already there. Healthy communities and quality of life.
I tend to agree. How does everybody else feel about that? Just drop those action words, encourage, promote, and I don't think it takes anything away from it. And once again, these are just the main points that we're going to be addressing with additional information. So what does everybody else think about this before we start modifying again?
Well,
Yeah, I
we can
agree.
leave them in or take them out, it doesn't
I
bother
agree.
me. But I like Mary's thought on the last one, somehow making that quality customer service, whether we say promote or something. But I think the word quality definitely has to be in there.
I think so too. And
I personally am in favor for leaving the encourage, promote, only because if you take those off, Mary, you're basically committing. You're saying to yourself, it already is, but it really isn't. Even, let's talk about the customer service. Supervisor Oberg brought up a good point. That is one of the number one complaints we hear from a lot of people about the customer service. So I think the county is trying to get to quality. So we're trying to enhance quality customer service, but we're not there yet. Same thing, we're promoting continuous infrastructure improvements. It's not that it's going on all the time, but we're trying to get there. So if you leave some of those words in there, we're basically telling the taxpayers we're trying to do this. We're working towards this,
right, we're
but we're
working
not
towards
there yet. We're not saying we're doing it, but we're trying to get there. I don't know, I just think it just sends a message.
yeah, I'm not inclined to want to strike those words out of there right now myself. I think that I think that it, once again, because the plan is saying that it's a work in progress. The development of the county is a work in progress. Everything that we do is a work in progress. So,
Well, we're striving to get to those points.
Right.
That's our vision, to try to get there, but we're, in some areas, we're just not there yet.
right.
But I don't want to mislead the public and have them think that we think that we're there, but because we're not there yet. I mean, what do you think? Because that way, if you're saying, like, we're promoting economic development, we're encouraging responsible stewardship of natural resources, but we all know that some people aren't. So I think we're trying to get to those places, and we're kind of sending a message to the public that we're trying to get there.
Actually, strive is a great action word.
Striving to get there.
Well,
yes.
we're going to drop the INGs though. Remember, we could say
that's right.
strive for quality and
There you
enhanced
go.
quality customer service, or
Can I ask a question, just as a point of clarification
Yes.
for me? And I don't know if Jeremy is clear on it or Kazi yet, but so with these bullets, what is, because there's different ways to write these vision statements.
Right.
You can write them as a paragraph, you can write as a sentence, you can keep them as bullets. It almost sounds like you're almost wanting to provide an outline format. I would like some direction, and I'm sure, just for clarification of staff as well, when we're looking at this stuff, what format? What are you looking for? Because on top of that, you guys are wordsmithing, looking at stuff here. If it's going to become a sentence or a paragraph, those words may, some of those encourage and all that stuff may get removed or finessed.
Well, I
or do
don't
you want it to keep as bullets and then do underneath, like another sentence underneath these, or what? I'm not sure exactly what you're expecting out of the refinement at this point.
Well, I didn't think that we understood that we were going to strike all the paragraphs, because some people probably will want more detail, don't you think? So I know we can go back and condense some of the paragraphs, but I don't think personally, I don't think we should strike out the paragraphs in the vision statement. I thought this was going to be a guide.
You're talking about this initial?
I think.
So,
You want
Mr. Chairman,
to keep
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
initial vision statement? Is that what you're saying?
Let's turn this to Jeremy real quick.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, as I'm understanding it, the initial document that we've got, the existing vision statement, isn't necessarily something we're going to keep and cut and paste. We're going to start from scratch here based on what you've put together here today. As I'm understanding how we want to move forward with this, these are our bullet points or our headers, and we're just going to add perhaps just a short paragraph for each one of those to describe exactly what we are.
That's my
What our
understanding.
vision is.
That's my understanding as well. And for that reason, having the action verbs is a good idea, because it kind of leads you right into what you're getting ready to read and following.
Are we in agreement with that, Jessica?
Okay, yeah, nice. Now, I wasn't sure what you guys were.
Does that work? Mary, you like the action?
I think we're working on two definitions of a vision statement, very honestly. To me, when you're looking at a vision, our ideal is quality customer service. So if we're going to add a couple sentences underneath that, we might define that we're going to enhance or whatever, but our vision, where we want to be, the ideal is quality customer service. But
Okay,
that's the
well
way
taken.
I work on vision
We can
statements when
always-
I'm
we
doing
can take, for
strategic planning.
instance, the first bullet, engage community through collaboration. We could just say, well, I don't know what we could say with that as far as communities through collaboration. We want to address what we're doing specifically, engaging. But
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
at this point too, I might suggest that we take what we have here and let us work with it and come back next month with another suggestion or a draft document that we can kind of dig into a little bit further. That's.
yeah, I don't think we're building two different vision statements. I think we're just trying to figure out the best way to make this one as comprehensible as possible to the public as they read it. And once again, I always like to be able to just rattle bullets right off the top of my head if I'm going to try and remember something. It makes it a lot easier for me.
And again, I think, wouldn't we eventually have goals underneath each one of these?
Yes, they will. Yeah, that's,
And the goals would be
we'll flesh it out.
extracted from the various elements
Right,
that would apply to that.
right.
So I think you need to have a little bit of a statement kind of giving more flesh to it.
I think
so people
we do
understand
too.
it.
So
And then-
at this point in time, I would really like to just dump these in staff's lap and say, go for it. Give us something to work with from this point on, and we may decide we want to modify it. We may want to drop some of those action verbs or add something else. Yes, Connie?
Well, if I'm reading the existing Yavapai County vision, even though they're not in the same order that we have up there, this does sort of give a little definition to what those bullet points mean. If, you know, for example, the, let's see what number it was. Preserve or embrace our rural heritage. Well, right here, to preserve our Western rural and ranching traditions and responsibly manage the process of urbanizing communities. I mean, that just goes to further enhance that bullet point.
Yes, and we can, yeah, we're going to tie these things back into those, to the existing elements, and we can definitely, take relevant information from the existing vision statement as well. Absolutely.
I think this has covered a lot. I read it and it really has covered. The only thing they didn't really expand upon too much is the relationship between the county and water, because that tends to be a big giant topic up here, and there wasn't a lot to expound upon that in this existing one.
Okay.
So we've got a lot to work with here.
We've given you a lot to work with.
Okay.
So do we have anything else on the vision statement at this point in time, keeping in mind as a work in progress? Okay, well, we're going to move to other business then. I don't see any hands up. Anyone? Okay, good. So let's see.
Mr. Chairman, we did have the growth area element introduction.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay.
As next on the agenda. And this, I can get into this just a little bit here.
Please.
This is just a very basic introduction to this next element that the committee will be working on. And we have a lot of information that staff is already working on to put together. So what you're seeing in front of you is a very, very incomplete document, because we are updating the maps that are going to be included as part of that. We're updating the census information that's included as part of that. So a lot of that information, in fact, census information isn't entirely complete yet. So as soon as we get that, we're going to include that in this document. So this should be a very short overview of what this element is going to be, probably a short discussion, and we're going to start fleshing this out, putting this back in front of you here in the coming months.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Hopefully everybody had an opportunity to review the growth area element. Any comments on it?
I did have one comment.
Yes, John.
This is kind of an ongoing question, and I don't think we're going to answer it today, but the question is, what role will the community vision statements play in the planning? I see no mention at all in this growth area element about how local community vision statements will be used in making decisions about growth areas. So I think it's important that it be discussed. I know we haven't yet resolved how the Board of Supervisors is going to treat the community vision statements, whether they're going to adopt them, whether they're going to attach them as appendices. The more important question is, what role will they play in the planning? When a developer comes in and wants to put in a certain kind of development, will they be given a copy of the community vision statement? Will they be told that that's going to play a role in the decision-making process and so forth? So at some point, I'd like to see that addressed in this particular element.
Right, and that's actually that's the purpose of our current visits with the different communities, our different all the information we're trying to seek from them. We definitely want to make sure that the community interests are addressed in this plan. So it looks like this is actually a little lacking, the growth area elements. It addresses just about everything except that one important key element. The community plans. How can we address those?
Just follow up on that. Our community, which is the Sedona Red Rock Western Gateway community, consists of about a dozen neighborhoods. They have been conducting a survey, and question number 3 on the survey was, with regard to community vision statements, which statement below best represents your view? And we gave them choices. One of them was, community vision statements should be given substantial weight by county planning and zoning and by the Board of Supervisors in making future development decisions. The second choice they had was, they should be considered guidelines and given some weight. The third choice was, they need not be considered. 75% of the respondees said they should be given substantial weight, and another 20% said they should be considered guidelines. So we're talking about 90 about 93% of the respondees said they wanted community vision statements taken into account in future planning.
I can tell you in my district, they would definitely go with A.
Oh, absolutely. No question. Actually, I go with A. And I just happen to be in his district. Okay, so how could we, I think what we need to do is add a bullet in here and flesh it out as well. Now the question is, where do we want to place it? We have the introduction, we have current conditions.
So when discussing the community vision statements, it just needs to be careful on what you, again, say as mandatory or whatever else, because none of those documents, despite being worked on by groups, have not been worked on by county staff and adopted in any way. So that is like a completely different process. So they can be added as appendices. I think we mentioned this last time, but they can't be incorporated. The maps cannot be incorporated into them, because then if incorporated into the element, you can put them in there, but if you did, you're then inadvertently approving all those documents, which if you want to do, but that's, I guess, up to the supervisors as well and the board. But it's just something, those documents, I'm not sure myself to the degree that staff has reviewed or made sure that those documents are in line with state laws or local laws and things like that. So they can be put in the appendix. It's just, we need to, if you want to go in that direction, that's something that you need to really be thoughtful of. If you want to incorporate them as a fully, that obviously that's, as you guys know, that's the biggest way for a document to have weight is for adoption and acceptance. Otherwise, it is simply, again, a guideline, a policy document that you can encourage. For instance, in the village plans that you have in Phoenix, those are guideline documents. They do approve them, but they go to a village committee. That committee then reviews each plans and all that stuff. So I'm just trying to make sure that you don't inadvertently take on more than you mean to in this document. We'll definitely put in points, and I think that would be very helpful. Like if you guys had mentioned or send an email with things that you want it to say, or how policies or ways that they could encourage those to be more, have heavier weight with or without adopting these other plans.
Question, the City of Phoenix general plan, do they specifically address the community development plans?
They say that there are village plans, but each of those documents has been adopted separately. They're not included inside. So the boundaries of those plans, there's a map of the boundaries of the plans, and they say, see other plan. They don't actually adopt those visions or the goals.
So they reference them.
They reference them because then that makes them more amendable.
I don't think we want to make the community development plans an appendix to the comprehensive plan. I don't think we want to. Was that in discussion with the supervisors?
I apologize for missing part of that conversation, but we're talking about the individual community vision statements.
Right.
Those, as directed by the previous board, those statements would be appendicized. They would not be adopted as part of the comprehensive plan.
Just the vision or the entire plan?
The vision, the individual community vision statements that are submitted by, for instance, Beaver Creek and Village of Oak Creek and those types of plans, those would not be adopted.
And that's fine as part of the appendix is what I was getting at. But as soon as you mention them in a goal or or try to implement, for instance, a vision statement into the document, then that changes it from being appendicized, is what I'm saying.
Okay, Harry, you had something that you want to comment?
Well, of course, that was a previous board, and we got a new board now, and I'm not sure that the previous board's position would be the one we would take today, I can tell you that. I think the vision statements from the communities, if we're going to get them involved, if we're going to have collaboration, then we definitely have to take into consideration the feelings of the community and how they want to see how they grow or how they develop over the next 10 years. So I don't have a problem with them being, an appendix. And I understand what you're saying. I mean, even if they're an appendix, maybe they need to be vetted at some point by the staff to make sure that whatever they're saying, is not violating state law or other things that are going on. I understand that. But I would hope that when a PAD came in and went to P&Z, that they would go back, if it's going to be in Congress, let's say, they go back and see, what are the development plans that have been expressed by that community, and maybe go back to the developer and say, understand this is what the community wants to do, can you incorporate their ideas or their interests or concerns into your plan, so that, it has a better chance of being, approved and not be contested by the community. So I think, they have a valid function, let's say, in the process, in our overall comprehensive plan, but also in how we process development plans in the future as they come in. So, and the other thing I would like to say is, I think, and, Connie can probably, speak to this, but if you were going to go into a community and develop, wouldn't you want to know what the community feels about how they want to develop and what are their major concerns?
Well, absolutely. In fact, I would say any developer, they study a lot of different things. They're obviously they're going to want to study the economics of the community they come into, but many developers will, in the interest of making money, they're going to read that. If they do read it, it's a reference, it's a guide. But the bottom, again, legally, at the end of the day, we have property rights, and we can pretty much do what we want. Now, well, let's take Jason Giese as an example. Not everybody wanted to have the Dells developed. Everybody thought it's a beautiful place, and it's too bad he's doing it. I'm sure he'll try to do it very responsibly and respectfully because he lives up here. But, at the end of the day, after 2.5, 3 years, he has property rights, and he prevailed in the sense that he is going to do exactly what he wanted to do. I think he's going to do it respectfully. And of course, the city did win in that. We got some acres for a park, which is a great thing. But that is a prime example of using this comprehensive plan as a guide. We all hope the developers will take this as their Bible, but the reality is they won't, and there's no this is not adopted. Yeah, there's no compunction to do it. There's no legal way they have to do it, but we all hope that they will do it. And so we're, as a county, going to provide this as a guide, and hopefully they'll listen. Right. But that at the end of the day, it's a reference. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mary.
Yeah, I was going to say, and this may be, not legal, right, or allowed on this, but we've got the growth area element recommendations. Why are we getting the feedback? Could we put something in there as under the bullet points, under the recommendations, encourage review of community plans in planning? So what we're doing is acknowledging that they exist. We're encouraging developers or whatever to look at them. We're not saying they have to. We're not saying they have to do anything with them. But we as a county are acknowledging their existence and that we're encouraging them to be incorporated in planning.
So
can we do something like that?
I think you're suggesting that we provide that as a bullet in the vision statement. In other words, one of our bullets.
No.
Fleshed out.
The growth area element.
It's in the growth area element under the recommendations.
But that would be an ultimate change at the county level. The county would have to the development department specifically would have to add that in their packet. And that would have to be a county level decision to add this vision statement and the comprehensive plan in the packet. I think it's a great idea to make that part of the packet. When I go in and apply for a permit and I receive a packet, it would be wonderful to have this comprehensive plan in the packet going out to developer. And even if you don't do it for individual, let's say you do it for a PAD, a planned area development, just verbatim, it's just part of the packet. I see that as a need because, again, a lot of these guys, let's talk about Deepwell Ranch. They brought in a company from Scottsdale, Espirito Loco, who was the developer. He's not from here. He didn't know. He was working with what he had. I think it would have been helpful for him on day one when he applied for that PAD permit to have had a vision statement. It may have guided him in a different way. Who knows? But I think that is a very good point. But that's a county level thing.
Okay, thanks, John. John, you have a comment?
Yeah, I was going to get a little bit more specific. Under goal number 1, it says identify potential growth areas for appropriate land uses that are compatible to surrounding communities. There's no mention at all, and I think it could be added, taking into account local community vision statements.
Sure, objective
taking
E.
into account is a bit vague, but at least it does mention, I mean, my concern here is who makes the decision on what's compatible with the surrounding communities. I'd like to put something in there about how that's to be done.
Okay.
So one thing I want to mention in this growth area element is that, as Jeremy mentioned, they are still creating these maps. And this area highlighted in yellow, I'm sorry, it came out actually as an addition and stuff versus a, what it was meant to do was just highlight it, is it has not been amended yet. And so we're probably most likely going to create new growth areas and new titles for them. And so when you do that, I think this will also help with, I don't know, again, we're getting feedback here too. I think it'd be good to add as point for, like, for instance, urban areas, transition, these will have boundaries. We could even make a point in those definitions of those urban areas to say, this community plan, this community plan, this community plan are located within this growth area. We encourage you to review and discuss with staff the implications of this. And so we can specifically, I don't think in doing that anyway, it really does any implication or hurts anything with staff or causes any legal issues. But we can specifically call them out so that people know what to look for when they are talking about it on the websites. I think that helps. But yeah, so when we're thinking, we bring out the maps or whatever, and we do the line and fun drawing stuff, then we can better figure out where those are. Because they have some right now, but they may be out of date or maybe changing them or more defining them. But those are still works in progress. So when you see that, and then, yeah, we do need to add more definition about the community visions or community plans and mentioning them as well.
Okay, John, and then Connie. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, the issue of transitional areas, the community I'm in was specifically designated as a transitional area in the last discussion of the comprehensive plan, and they objected to that. They said they want to be designated as a rural area. So one of the questions that comes up is, when you do these maps and you decide what are the transitional areas, will the community vision statements be taking into account and labeling those areas?
Well, that's the question on the table right now, but real quick, Connie, you had a...
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Jeremy, if, when you come into the development department and you apply for a permit, you get a checklist. Would it be possible to add, a reading of the community vision statement on the checklist? I mean, would that be practical? Would it be something that the county would consider?
We can certainly add that. We could add that today if we wanted to.
Yeah.
That, that they need to have an understanding of the comprehensive plan as it exists right now, that, these are items that need to be taken into consideration for your PAD or your subdivision or whatever you're putting together.
Yeah, but they don't. You know that, because they right now they're concerned, number one, with zoning. It's all about the zoning.
And exactly to your point, it comes down to the property rights. They're going to do whatever they think they can do or whatever they are allowed to do,
right?
Regardless of what the community around them wants sometimes. But that goes back to the property rights. But we can certainly encourage and promote.
Well, this would also be a helpful document for planning and zoning.
Mm-hmm.
Planning and zoning, if they don't already, are not required to read this, I think it would be helpful for them to read it, because again, they're ultimately responsible for allowing a lot of these pads in.
And our planners do take that into consideration as part of their report to the Planning and Zoning Commission. As part of their report for any project that comes through, they do take into consideration whether it does or does not meet the intent of the comprehensive plan.
Because this would be a healthy document for the Planning and Zoning Commissioners to fall back on if they have an issue with.
I would defer to Commissioner Peterson if he.
Yeah.
I believe they are pretty well versed in the comprehensive plan.
Oh, great.
We're fairly well versed on it. The trouble is that it's so cumbersome and I won't say poorly written. At the time, it all made sense, I'm sure, but it's a very difficult guideline at this point to work with. So we're all looking forward to an updated plan. Yeah, something streamlined. But the question that's really on the table right now is, well, first of all, John, go ahead. What do you have?
I think as a developer, I would want to know whether I would be welcomed warmly by a community with my proposal. If I could read the community vision statement, I would get a pretty clear idea of what they're expecting, what they would. We've been in the survey that's being conducted in our community area, we have specific questions. Would you support a rezoning to support to develop a convenience market, for example? And we're asking people what would be the reaction. I'd like to know that as a developer if I'm coming in as part of my planning. If I'm not going to be welcome in this area, maybe I'd want to go somewhere else.
Point well taken. So the question that's on the table right now is, I think everybody's in agreement. We want to address the community vision statements somewhere in this element. And so I just thought, looking at it, goal number 1, objective E, address the community vision statements. Make a reference to the fact, perhaps, that the existing community statements that we have on hand are addressed in Appendix A or whatever, Appendix 1, or however we label our appendixes. Anyways, does that make sense to do it that way? Is that a good approach?
I would support
Going once,
it. I
going
think
twice?
as we go forward, it'll become clearer what we can and can't do in terms of inclusion in the comprehensive plan.
Okay, good. So that'll be our starting point. And I think that not a bad idea at all to include legitimate vision statements, community vision statements in the plan and as an appendix for the reference of developers or for community members so that they know that their concerns are being addressed, so forth and so on. You know, it seems like a good idea to me, but then I'm only one member of the committee, so it's kind of in everybody else's lap at this point. You want to include that or not, and where do you want to put it?
Objective E.
Objective E, okay, for goal number 1. And what do we want to say as far as community vision statements go? Besides the fact that they're going to be in the appendix.
I would add
do we
to
want to
the
say
end
that
of
we'll
goal 1,
Review
taking
and
into
implement
account-
to the extent possible community vision
Right.
statements?
or take into consideration, or review, consider?
Review the community statements, the
Right.
community vision statements, or the community comprehensive plan.
Prior to development, prior to any development, or what do you think?
Well, this goal number 1 talks about identifying potential growth areas. If you
Right.
added a statement taking into account community vision statements, I think that would be sufficient for now.
Yeah, right, and that's going to be objective E, goal number 1. So instead of saying take into account, do we want to say review? How do we want to talk about how we're going to treat the community vision statements?
I think review, all we can do is ask them to review.
Yeah, okay, review. And consider? Yeah, okay, review and consider community vision statements. Andrea, did you get that? She's over there like, oh, slow down. Okay, anything else? Does that work? Okay, is there anything else we need to hammer out at this point in time with the growth area element? Once again, this isn't the last time we're going to be talking about this, so if anything jumps out at you later on, feel free to email Jeremy and Kaz and let them know, point all that stuff out, and we'll address it again at our next meeting or the meeting after that, or so on and so forth. Okay, now I think we really are ready for other business. And the first item is upcoming items of interest for the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. Jeremy, I think you...
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I've got a few things I can add here. The next thing coming up for the comprehensive plan is the Comprehensive Plan Committee update at the Board of Supervisors meeting next Wednesday. At that time, we will, I believe it was mentioned, someone mentioned it earlier this morning, we are going to be providing a summary of the survey results that we've received so far to the board members, and that information will be available to the public and to the board members at that time, and to the committee members at that time. Talking about public outreach at this point too, last month it was recommended that we place a comprehensive plan button on the main county website page. That is front and center on the county's yavapai.az.gov page. There is a button that rotates between Public Works road work and the Comprehensive Plan 2032. So that is available as a button on the county's main website. Also, I will be doing a comprehensive plan presentation tonight at the Cortez Lakes Community Association in District 2. So I'll be talking to the community members out there about the comp plan and how they can be involved in that. Also, we are working, staff is working with Public Works and with SIMPO to draft up a transportation element. That'll be an upcoming element that the committee will be considering. And we're also working with the flood control district for the water element. I'm not sure if she's still here. I wanted to introduce everybody. I think you all have met Elizabeth Glowacki. She's one of our hydrologists in the flood control district. She was here this morning. I don't think she's here now, but she's going to be part of our team moving forward and working pretty closely with us on the water element. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We're working pretty diligently behind the scenes right now. That is all I have for you, sir.
Just curious, as far as the new button that's available on the webpage, is that information being disseminated? Do we occasionally do little releases to the Daily Courier or anything like that?
Yeah, and that's something that we were talking about earlier. We do put out press releases periodically. It's been a little bit. I talked to our public information officer, David McAtee, the other day. We're going to get another press release out just to let everybody know that information is available and where they can find it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Anything else?
That's all I have for you, sir.
Wonderful. Next on the agenda is the roundtable for community members or committee members for any topics not included on the agenda. So is there anything else that you'd like to make sure is addressed down the road?
I would.
Yes, John.
This refers back to something that was mentioned at the previous meeting. I'll read it to you. Supervisor Michaels said that there's an invitation for the Sonoran Institute on the banner of water. She feels this will benefit the Committee on Water Matters for Yavapai County. It'll be held at the first part of March. That is indeed going to happen, and we have filed an application to have a delegation from Yavapai County attend that, and they have accepted it. So we've got, I believe there's 8 people in the delegation that will be going.
Right. And that's going to be the 1st through the 3rd of March?
That is correct.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. Okay, good. Yeah, and that's going to be in Phoenix, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do we know what the venue is actually going to be at this point?
I don't know.
Okay.
I could find out if you want to.
Oh, those details will come down as we go along. That's not until March. So, okay, thanks, John. Thanks for that reminder. Anything else? Round table. Here's your opportunity if there's any other topics that you want to address that are not included on the agenda. Okay, keep in mind that every meeting that we have, I'm going to make sure that this is part of the agenda. So if there's anything in the future that you want to make sure is addressed, then it'll be your opportunity every time. Last but not least, I guess we're ready. Sorry, I think we're ready.
The configuration we have right now with a microphone for each person, I think is far superior to what we've had in the past, where we had one microphone in the room. I'd like to see us continue with this setup. I think this has worked very well for this meeting.
Good. Done. I like it a lot, and this is the kind of setup I really prefer. Gives us an opportunity, first of all, to be able to see each other, and I think it really enhances our communication. So good, John. I'm glad that it works for you. Works for me. It seems to work for everybody. I'm seeing nodding heads. Okay. Last but not least, call to the public. Yes, sir. We have a public member who would like to. Can we provide a microphone for this gentleman?
Yes, he can sit right here. And I believe it's Patrick Grady?
Yes.
Okay, Patrick, if you could list your name.
Mr. Chairman, are you establishing a time limit for public comment?
2 minutes. Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. I apologize. You have 3 minutes, sir.
3 minutes.
Will that be sufficient for you?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm Patrick Grady. I'm a resident of Prescott 943 West Rosser Street.
And I thank you for this opportunity to be here this morning, now this afternoon, to talk about the Protect campaign, whose mission is to protect the Quad Cities region from climate impacts now facing our communities. I'm the steering committee chair. We represent diverse groups within the Quad Cities region committed to securing a climate impact risk assessment. Protect stands for Planning for the Resilience of Our Towns, the Environment, Climate, and Tourism. Okay. So we kind of have a troubling dilemma before us today. Sedona and the Verde Valley both have a climate profile that was produced in 2020. So our question to our policymakers is, why not us? Why not this side of Mingus Mountain? We want action in 2022 from the Quad Cities communities for our own climate risk assessment, and we need your leadership and your voice to move that forward. As you continue your work on the county comprehensive plan, we concur that it's vitally important to integrate the lens of these climate impacts into the plan. Impacts that you've talked about in the environmental element: increased propensity for more wildfires, long-term drought, increasing temperatures and heat waves across the county, increasing number of flood events. We applaud the energy element that focuses in part on the use of clean, renewable energy, and on the environmental element that's committed to stewardship and sustainability. The most recent environmental element recommendations also includes, and I quote, create a county-wide climate action plan to address future county mitigation efforts and prepare for droughts, floods, and fires regarding infrastructure preparation and utility usage. So we thank you for your leadership in this area. We're allies. So we have a couple of recommendations. Incorporate those climate impacts into your language around the county climate action plan, because it doesn't include and should include hotter temperatures and heat waves. Ensure that the County Office of Emergency Management and the Yavapai County Community Health Services integrate themselves into the climate action plan. And finally, in your own community roles, we invite you to join us in this Protect effort to secure political leadership support in our Quad Cities community for a climate risk assessment. So thank you for hearing me this morning.
Let's see, I understand you're chairperson for the for Protect, is that correct?
Yeah, I call myself the grand facilitator, but
okay,
yes.
Grand facilitator, I like that title better, actually. I may adopt that.
Yeah.
Does the county have your contact information?
No, but I will provide that to them.
Okay, very good. And any input you have, of course, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else, once again, call to the public? Any other public community members who would like to address the committee? Okay, well, it looks to me like we're just about ready for adjournment then. Going once, going twice, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody, for your participation in this important project.